And you mentioned that this year, Tom, you've done a NXGN 9. We've got the list here. Obviously we've got lots of football fans watching. We've probably got a few football manager players as well that, need to know who the next big star is to sign on that game. So if we just run down and if you can tell us a bit about what to expect and what they've done so far. So the first one on the list is Arda Güler from Fenerbahce.
Yeah, Arda Güler, I think, is a player that a lot of fans of the top clubs will have probably heard his name for the first time this summer. It looks like he's going to join one of the big European clubs. He's a attacking midfielder stroke winger, plays for, like you say, Fenerbahce. Already a Turkish international, scored an absolute beauty for his first international goal the other week against Wales. If you've not seen that, I would search that one out. But yeah, he's being dubbed the Turkish Messi, as a lot of these sort of attacking players are in countries where there's maybe they're not had great footballing success. But he is probably the best talent to emerge from that country in a very, very long time. His sort of average goals and assists per minute for the Fenerbahce first team over the past 18 months is extraordinary for a player of his age. He's still only 18. He won't turn 19 until 2024. And Real Madrid, Barcelona are both sort of vying for his signature this year. Dortmund, Bayern, Arsenal, they've all been linked as well. Liverpool. So, yeah, he's a really top talent, really exciting player, quick footwork, can spot a pass, really good finisher. He's the all-round package, I think.
And the next name, I'm obviously an Evertonian. I recognise this name. Mohamed Ali Cho. Is that how you pronounce it?
It is, yeah, Mo Ali Cho. So Cho has had a bit of a nomadic career because he was, let me get this right, he was born in France, then moved to London and was in the West Ham books for a bit. Then he went back to France and was at PSG, then came back to England and was at Everton, as you say, and then went back to France and landed at Angers, who obviously aren't a particularly big club. They're not renowned for youth development, but that's where he landed. And he had a breakout season in the 21-22 season. He's a tall winger. He can play centrally as well, but mostly a winger. Really good dribbler, decent finisher. He then joined Real Sociedad for a fee in the region of about 10 million euros last summer. And injury spoiled his first season in Spain a little bit, but when he did play, he showed signs of the talent he's got. Obviously, they're back in the Champions League next season, which, if he can kick on, gives him a real big opportunity to show what he can do at the highest level. But yeah, tall winger, very direct running style, likes to cut inside. Yeah, he's a player to watch. He's eligible for England, although he plays for France's age group teams at the moment. Get a lot of dual nationals these days. But I know he has played for England previously at age group level. So yeah, maybe one to watch for England fans as well, if they can persuade him to turn his back on France.
And the next name, Tom, is South American, but we can expect to see him in Europe very soon. It's Endrick from Palmeiras.
Yeah, this Endrick is probably the top talent of his age group in terms of in world football. There's probably a couple of others vying for it with him, but he's number one. So young striker, plays for Palmeiras. Real Madrid have already committed to paying 60 million euros for him, and he's only 16 years old. They'll actually probably end up paying a little bit more because there's some sort of fees that have to go to agents and stuff. I think it could end up costing him close to 75 million euros, Real Madrid, but that's how much they love Endrick. He was the best under-20s player in Brazil as a 15-year-old. He was scoring overhead kicks from outside the penalty area. He was dribbling past defenders 4 or 5 years older than him, making them look stupid. He has had a mixed bag in terms of how he's gone in the Palmeiras first team so far. So he made his debut towards the back end of 2022 and had a really good start. I think he scored 3 in his first 7, but then had a tricky start to 2023. And thankfully, he sort of seems to have come through that a little bit. He scored his first Copa Libertadores goal a couple of weeks ago and then backed that up with a goal in the league. So fingers crossed he's going to kick on again. We won't see him in Europe until the end of next season, so the start of the 24-25 season. That's just due to rules regarding players under the age of 18 from outside of Europe coming into the EU. But yeah, a striker can do it all, can pick it up deep and dribble past players, can get into the box, headers, tap-ins, great finisher, like I say, can score from anywhere on the pitch. If Endrick reaches his ceiling, we're talking Ballon d'Or sort of worthy talent. He's got to hit that ceiling, and obviously going straight into Real Madrid as an 18-year-old, when he does, we've seen it can take time for players to develop there. We only have to look at Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo, how they've developed over a couple of years to become the sort of players we see now. So, let's not put too much pressure on Hendrick, which is there's me saying he's going to win the Ballon d'Or one day. But his talent is rare. It is really, really rare. And if he goes to the top, then watch out.
Right. And the next player, it rhymes with Xavi, and he's also at Barcelona.
Gavi, yes. So the reigning Golden Boy winner. He won the Copper Trophy as well, the Ballon d'Or sort of young player award that they give out. And Gavi's a really interesting player for me because he gets sort of pulled together with Pedri a little bit at Barcelona. But there's some key differences. Pedri is a much more classical, technical player, whereas Gavi does have that technical ability, but he is a bit rawer and he's a bit sort of more dynamic in terms of carrying the ball. He will kick any opponent who comes near him up in the air. That's probably the one issue with Gavi that could stall his career is he's got to sort his discipline out. He was in double figures for yellow cards at Barca last year. I think he got booked on his Spain debut after about 5 minutes for booting someone up in the air. So, yeah, a top player with issues to iron out. But, yeah, I mean, you just have to look at he came from – it was interesting because I knew Gavi when he came through at Barca the season before last. But when he made his Spain debut, he'd made 5 appearances for Barca. If you search Gavi on Google, you got the Global Vaccine Alliance, which was quite that was quite topical at the time, I suppose. But like he wasn't even top of his own Google search page when he first broke through. But he's very quickly shown why they've been so excited by him at Barcelona for a number of years. He was in a really strong age group team. He stood above the rest. And yeah, if he irons out that discipline issue, him and Pedri, if they could be pulling the strings at Barcelona for 15 years, people talk about him as a new Xavi and Iniesta. I think Gavi's actually a bit different to both those players, but that doesn't mean he can't reach sort of that level in terms of talent because he does have it all that you want from an all-round midfielder. Add a few more goals, cut out a few yellow cards. You've got what you want.
And the next player on the list, Tom, is a player that a lot of English football fans will already know and will have seen in action. It's Alejandro Garnacho at Manchester United.
Yeah, Garnacho is a funny player. Like you say, a lot of fans will know him. Obviously, a really good wing talent. Plays on the left, likes to cut in from the right. Fearless, it seems. And I was quite surprised by him because United signed him from Atletico Madrid a few years ago. And sort of until last, I want to say Christmas 2021, start of 2022, I think he was seen as a decent talent at United. And then he just exploded. He basically won them the FA Youth Cup on his own with some extraordinary goals and some good celebration imitation of not just Ronaldo, but I think he did some Messi ones and other players. And yeah, then the way he's kicked on in the Premier League this year, he's probably going to force, there's a chance he could force Jadon Sancho out of the club, depending on who else they sign this summer. That's how talented he is. Yeah, just it's Garnacho's fearlessness that really sticks out for me. He's not overawed by any situation. Clearly, he's got technical ability, but he's not maybe as gifted technically as a couple of the other players on this list, but he's just absolutely loves the big stage. You can see he's going to absolutely thrive in it. And I just think that's what makes Garnacho stand out. And he's one of those players where maybe a couple of years ago, we didn't have him on a NXGN list because we didn't think he had the ability. And it's where his first team contribution has then shot him all the way up to the top, where if we'd been ranking this list rather than just picking a group of 9, he'd have been probably top 3 for the way he'd played for United and what he'd shown at sort of the highest level. So yeah, these are all top talents, but yeah, the way he's been able to take to that stage is really, really encouraging.
Yeah, and the next name, Tom, it's a player I know, but I will have to check the pronunciation. It's Romeo Lavia. Is that right?
Romeo Lavia, yeah, got that right.
Yeah.
Again,
Southampton.
Yeah, player English fans might have seen this season at Southampton. One of the few shining lights, as obviously they were relegated from the Premier League. Just an all-action central midfielder. The first time I came across Lavia was when he joined Man City as a 16-year-old. And a couple of months later, he was playing in what's now known as the Papa John's Trophy, the EFL Trophy, playing against Tranmere's first team and running rings around them, like literally running rings around them. And it's like, say what you want about Tranmere's first team, but these are seasoned professional footballers who know what they're doing, should know what they're doing against 16-year-old lads. And he was just dancing around them. And I was like, this isn't your average sort of number 6 holding midfielder. He needs to work on his passing a little bit, but his positional sense and his ability on the ball in terms of taking it and trying to find a pass is really good. It's just a few things to iron out. He's going to move to a top club this summer. It's going to cost because they've gone down maybe slightly less than market value. I think market value for him is 50 million quid already. You just have to look at last summer what Southampton bought him for, 12 million. Before the end of that same window, Chelsea made a 40 million pound bid for him. Like, that's the impact he made right away. He's clearly was ready for the Premier League last season. He showed that for Southampton. He's not going to be a Championship footballer next season. He's going to be playing for a team that's probably going to be in Europe. Just a really, really good player.
Yeah. Do you think he could, with Declan Rice being linked, heavily with a move away, would he fit somewhere like a West Ham, do you think?
I think that will be a good move for him, and it will probably mean he's got more chance of playing first-team football than maybe if he went to somewhere like a Chelsea or a Liverpool. Although the state of Liverpool's midfield, I think everyone's got a shot, really. But yeah, I think that kind of move would really work for him. There wouldn't be probably the same pressure to perform. But yeah, he's going to be in the Premier League next season, even if Southampton aren't.
Yeah, and then you've got Youssoufa Moukoko from Dortmund. It feels like, although he's still very young, feels like he's probably been around the longest out of these names in terms of people who he is.
It probably feels like that because he was making headlines when he was about 12 years old, scoring hat-trick after hat-trick against players 3 or 4 years older than him. His goal record at youth level is insane. He is this archetypal, just academy wonder kid, unstoppable, 3 or 4 goals a game. He was clearly too good for that level. The rules in Germany state they actually had to change the rules in the Bundesliga to allow him to make his debut as a 16-year-old, because until he came through, I think you had to be 17 to make your debut, and they moved it unofficially for him, and then he made his debut, I think, the day after his 16th birthday. And he's the youngest player to ever score in the Champions League. He's the youngest player in Bundesliga history, youngest goal scorer in Bundesliga history. I think that one still stands as well. He's sort of had an up and down start to life in the first team, partly through injuries, partly for a bit of form, but he played really, really well this past season. Injuries meant he was in and out of the team a bit, but when he did play, he got on some really hot streaks. He was the youngest player at the 2022 World Cup when that was coming off a period where he'd been in form. He's going to be a great goal scorer at the highest level. There were clubs queuing up to sign him in January because it looked like he might not sign a new contract at Dortmund. He did eventually. But he will be the latest sort of young player coming off that conveyor belt at one of the best academies in Europe. It would not surprise me if this season is the one where we sort of see him start scoring 20 goals a season. Because if he stays fit, he's that good.
Yeah, and staying in the Bundesliga, but this time at Bayern Munich, you've got Mathis Tel.
Yeah, so Tel is a really exciting talent, and it'll be interesting to see, especially if Bayern sign a player like Harry Kane, what they then do with Tel, whether they loan him out, because he's ready to be a first-team footballer. I think he scored 5 Bundesliga goals last season, despite, I don't even know if he started a game. He might have started 1. But yeah, he's came through the Rennes Academy, which is the academy that produced Ousmane Dembele and Eduardo Camavinga and a host of other really good players. Bayern paid 25 million euros to sign him from Rennes last summer. And like I say, he took to it like a duck to water. He's got he's been compared to Mbappe, and I don't think that's quite right, but he does have the pace to sort of get in behind, and he's a great finisher, one of the best you'll see at that age. He was player of a tournament at the under-17 Euros in 2022, and he was just a class above at that level. Just anytime you put him in on goal, it was going in. You knew it was going in. But he also got a bit more of an all-round game to him. He can come deep. He can face away from goal. Obviously, stuff to work on. He's still only, 17, 18 years old. But yeah, a really, really interesting player. And I think a player whose future will be interesting. If he goes on loan to a sort of mid-level Bundesliga or even goes back to France team this summer, I think he could be like one of the breakout stars in Europe next season. Because the ability is there. He just needs the opportunity to play now.
Yeah, and the last name on the list, Tom, is Paris Saint-Germain. It's Warren Zaire-Emery.
Yeah, the PSG's great mystery of being able to keep hold of whether they can keep hold of their academy players. Zaire-Emery, amongst a host of really, really good players, is right up there. He broke out last season in the UEFA Youth League when he was only 15, and he was the best player in that tournament, basically. Xavi Simons probably was slightly better for the same team, but Zaire Emery was running games against teams with players 3 or 4 years older than him. He's actually played a lot more for PSG's first team this past season as either a right back or a right-sided midfielder, but he's a central midfielder. He's your pivot. That's the kind of player he will turn into, and that's hopefully what we start to see at PSG in the next year or two as they start to develop and transition through midfielders. But yeah, just through balls, the way he can carry the ball, he's shown already at first team level he can finish. It's probably between him and, I mentioned Hendrick is probably the best player sort of his year group in the world. Zaire Emery's right up there with him. It's almost neck and neck. And Zaire Emery's probably the better pure footballer. It's just Hendrick's abilities in terms of goal scoring probably mean he'll get more headlines and people will learn more about him. But yeah, Zaire Emery is a top talent. There are big clubs looking at him because they know PSG have this thing where they struggle to keep hold of young talent because they can't always guarantee that they're going to play. But Gaultier gave him plenty of chances last season, and if Luis Enrique is a person coming in, he's shown with Spain and at Barca that he likes to give young players a chance. So maybe we see Zaire Emery become a staple in that team as they sort of move away from their superstar era over the next couple of years, and so hopefully give some of their talented young players led by him a chance.
Yeah, it's just making me feel really old, Tom, talking about these players as well. They were babies when Greece were winning the Euros, or even 2000.
Born. Yeah,
even born. No, it's just incredible.
I have players on my sort of big spreadsheet that I have who were born in like 2008, 2009, and it's like I was going to university at that point. It's just absolutely, it's horrible to think that these are the guys that in probably a year or two are going to be making debuts in first teams around the world.
Yeah, and we're at that point, like early to mid 30s now, aren't we? And it's even now that like Premier League sides, all the players are younger than us nearly.
We'll stick with early 30s. Come on, let's not into mid yet. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's let's not depress this way.
Arsene Wenger isn't giving us more than a 1 year deal, is he?
Not at all. No, he wouldn't.